I'm just going to briefly set up the context for the audio you're going to hear from essentially Dan and Dave. And they're discussing how and why they kill certain characters on the show. And we're going to discuss the particular actor that they're going to talk about and sort of the, I think, disturbing thought process in terms of why they justified killing off certain characters and when on the show.
There's a, before we deliver the scripts to actors who are going to perish in that script, we make the phone call, which has become kind of a tradition, and it's not that much fun. But usually, people are quite gracious about it and everything. And this year, for the first time, we got some pushback where the actor said, "You sure about that?"
Guess who it is?
And
you watch the season, guess who it is?
And we said, "Yeah, no, we're quite sure you are going to die this year." And so there was a long conversation. Then we got a long letter explaining why this was a bad idea, which just made us want to kill that person that much more. So,
But what do you think about?
Alright, so we've let them speak for themselves, though I think I want to add a few more details. The actual interview comes from Oxford, and I guess it would be fair to say that they were fairly drunk. They brought a lot of alcohol, and as you can see, some of the other actors of the show are in there, and they're smiling and laughing while Benioff is sort of justifying his policy of killing people. And again, to be completely fair, if you hear the audio right before the one I played, they are a little bit more remorseful and they're a little bit more sensitive. But what Benioff is talking about is essentially Selmy, and the actor who played is Selmy. And if you know the videos I've done so far, I actually do praise how they did the early parts of Selmy's character. But in terms of his actual final death, it was pretty terrible. Because if you know the books fairly well, and again, book knowledge can always be, variable. These are a lot of books, and it's a lot of words. But it's very well established that Barristan is an extremely powerful fighter. So if he is going to die, and he is killed off, obviously, in the show, then yes, that's perfectly possible, but it should be by a very, very large force, because he's that good a fighter. He can really fend off almost an entire small army all by himself, but the show just portrays him dying after, again, taking out quite a few people, but he dies essentially against a group of fighters who are just, sort of average fighters, and that just doesn't fit the character. So the death is not terrible, but it's not really befitting what the character really is, either in the show or in the books. But I think what's a little bit more disturbing and troublesome is it does send up a red flag in terms of their attitude that usually they did feel some regret in terms of killing off characters, but in this particular case they really did it out of a sense of vindictiveness and really enjoyed doing it. But there's some added details that they don't include, namely that the actor really read the books carefully and his character is still alive. Even by now, in A Dance with Dragons, Barristan is still with us. So he was just pointing out, well, I'm still alive in the book, so why exactly am I getting killed off? And again, their response is very negative and angry, saying, well, it doesn't matter what's happening in the books, we're going to kill you off anyway, and in the fact that you even bothered to question us means we're going to really enjoy killing you this time. Which is a pretty horrific way of looking at what they should be doing as producers and as writers. But there's a kind of added twist, and I want to be careful because, yes, I think you have to be not naive as to why the actor wants to stay on. I mean, it's a lot of paychecks, it's a lot of money and power. So I think we can sort of come in a little clear-eyed and say that, well, maybe it wasn't entirely because of the story, and the actor has his own self-motivations, and I think that's true. But it does get into something deeper, which we're going to see, is that their actual knowledge of the story is extremely weak, and they were sort of just doing this trick of killing off characters as well as other tricks and gimmicks in terms of their writing because they really didn't have anything else. They really didn't want to understand the story or didn't care to at any deeper level than it's just really a sword game. There's a lot of battles, there's a couple of sex scenes, and that's basically it. It's just a big adventure story that has this kind of this theme of mortality where characters, once they're gone, are dead. But beyond that, they just didn't care about what the story meant. It was just a very simple adventure action story filled with stunts and swords and dragons, and that's what they were going to focus on, and that's what they did. And killing characters was just a means to an end of just, bringing on a bigger spectacle for the audience. But what it all meant was sort of empty and shallow at the end of the day. And unfortunately, this case really proves it, that they weren't really taking care of the story as much as their own ego. And their primary criterion really was always like, well, do I like this actor or do not like this actor? And is this actor reflecting my ego properly or not? And if they liked you, then you kind of stayed on, whether the story demanded it or not. And if they didn't like you, well, they enjoyed killing you. And as you can see, the other actors are sort of halfway with them. I mean, Kit is clearly laughing and smiling with them. He sort of doesn't disagree, though John Bradley, I do think, carries himself off a little bit more dignified. There is this kind of agreement that, yeah, they're the boss, they decide, and it doesn't really matter what the story says. What we're here to do is just serve their egos and their vision, whether or not it makes any sense. We don't care. So, another little symptom of what would happen later. I know a lot of people go back now to the episode and wonder, like, well, did we have any warning signs? And I think, yeah, the death of Selmy was a really big warning sign that they were more concerned with what they wanted the show to be than what the stories were really about and what they should have concentrated on. All right, this has been GRRM and Thrones Analyzed. If you like the content, please hit the like button and or subscribe. Please share the content if you want. Thanks for listening. Please be safe.